think this is a moment for celebration. I want to thank, first of all, everybody who is with us today. And more importantly, I want to actually see if we can do a chant together before we start, because we have to celebrate. These things don't happen by coincidence. These things happen because of the power of our people. So I'm going to say, when we fight, I'm going to ask you, all of you, to unmute yourselves and say, we win. So when we fight,
we win.
Once again, when we fight,
We win.
This is what we do when we work in collaborations, and this is what we did with the New York Hero. My name is Maritza Silva Farrell. I am the Executive Director of Align, and I am extremely proud to be here today with all of you, because the mission of our organization is to actually build powerful coalitions like the Essential Workers Coalition, uniting labor unions, worker centers, community groups. The power of a movement really is based on the power of a people. We don't have the money of large corporations. We have the power of the people. And today we are celebrating what we all came to do here. Let's not forget what happened a year ago. We were all scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. How do we protect our workers? Workers at the front lines were fighting to make sure that we get some food in our tables. Workers were serving for us, sacrificing their families. It has been a really rough year. Our communities have suffered. And what we were trying to do with this legislation, working every single day in and out, was specifically to get protection for workers who have for too long been vulnerable in the system that we're in today. So what we're celebrating is not only the passage of New York Hero, but we're celebrating the power of our frontline workers. And we're saying thank you. Finally, we're giving a real substantive thank you to these workers. And I want to say also that all of this happens when there is collaboration with our elected officials who believe in our people and who are doing the right work of representing our communities. And this happens thanks to the leadership of Assemblywoman Reyes and Senator Janaris. Your leadership really got us to the finish line, and the work and collaboration of this coalition with all of you really allow for us to be able to have this big win. Today, we are setting a model for the country. Let's remember this. There is no other law in the country that is permanent, airborne, infectious disease. This is what we created today. This is what we are celebrating today. We are setting the standards for all these employers to make sure that our workers are protected. So thank you. And first, I want to introduce to Senator Gianaris, who really work with us every day, every hour of the, working on how do we make sure that everything that our workers wanted to see happens. And thank you for listening to the outcry of your communities. Thank you for listening to our workers. And thank you for your leadership. I'm going to pass it on to you, Senator Gianaris.
Thank you, Maritza. And thank you to everybody, most of all the workers who not only endured over the last year in suboptimal conditions, but also rolled up their sleeves and got to work to change the laws to make sure that never happens again. Make no mistake, what we did with the passage of this law is save lives. There were a number of people that we know lost their lives because protections at their workplaces were not in place over the last year. And now that is going to be required going forward. I'm extremely proud of the work we're able to do to get this done, not just because there will be standards put in place that have to be enforced, but also because we're empowering the workers to monitor compliance, to have a workplace committee that is going to give them a voice in their workplace and how it is providing for their own safety and the safety of the customers of these establishments too. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the general public will benefit from this as well. We certainly hope we're seeing the back end of the coronavirus pandemic, but the beauty of this law is it applies going forward. If it should come back, if there should be a different pandemic, God forbid, in the future, we will be ready and people will be protected. And the workers that helped us get through it in the first place will have their safety at the top of the priority list as we continue to go forward. So I want to thank you, Maritza and Align, You have been tireless. We have done so many rallies, some in person with our masks and some virtual, but you always insist that we chant no matter what scenario we're in these rallies. So today's a celebration of a job well done for you and for everyone on this call, and I'm incredibly appreciative to have partnered with all of you.
Thank you, Senator Janaris, and thank you to this coalition. Yeah, chanting, that's the way we can get that energy going, especially during the Zoom calls. It's just so impersonal, but we're gonna make do, and we're gonna keep on going. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to come together and continue winning more things for our workers, and that's exactly what we're gonna talk about. You point out something that I want to emphasize once again. The beauty of this legislation and now law is that we have worker committees in place. This allows for workers to come together and decide what kind of health and safety protections they need in the workplace. It's giving the voice to workers as we know it. And my dog has something to say about that too. Up next, I'd like to introduce you to Assemblywoman Reyes, who has been championing this work with all of us.
Thank you, Maritza. Again, I'm so happy to be here with all these workers and this coalition. I am incredibly humbled to have had the opportunity to chaperone this through the Assembly because it was really your baby, the coalition's baby. So many workers who came together to help craft this piece of legislation. And like Senator Gianaris said, this is the first of its kind, and it would make sure that we are prepared, that we are proactive in the face of any other pandemic, any other airborne infectious disease that can potentially, our state be contending with. And for me, as a nurse, it's so important to have these protections in place because I know how it has been affecting our workers, how many lives we've lost because of this, and because labor laws change when there's a monumental event. And COVID has been a monumental event that has propelled our laws to change and to really modernize for the world that we're living in today. And unfortunately, this is the world that we're living in today, and we have to have these protections in place for our workers. So again, I am so happy to be celebrating with all of you and have been had the opportunity to work with this coalition and bring this to fruition for all the workers in our state.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Reyes. It is really an amazing moment to celebrate. And I'm just gotta say, like, I told my staff, I'm gonna hold my breath because I might cry. I might cry because this is big for workers. This is no small thing. We are changing the ways in which our workers need to be treated. Little by little, we're gonna change the system. And I think that's what we're trying to do here with all of our work. And I'd like to introduce you now to a worker who first has been hearing and living the experience in places where we know that where employers aren't doing the right thing. So I'd like to introduce you to Maritza Ovales from the Nail Salon Workers Coalition.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Maritza Ovales. Yo estoy aquí soy trabajadora de uñas y estoy agradecida por invitarme. No sé si me puedan escuchar.
Te escuchamos bien, Maritza. Sí.
Bueno, como les dije, yo soy trabajadora de uñas. Tengo más de 20 años trabajando en la industria de uñas. Y los problemas de protección de salud y seguridad siempre han existido. Cuando empezó la pandemia, el nivel de riesgo de no tener las protecciones adecuadas era de vida o muerte. Creo que así fue como nos sentimos muchos y nos seguimos sintiendo así, en que si no tenemos la protección adecuada, nuestras vidas siguen en peligro, y no solo la de nosotros, sino también la de nuestras familias, porque cuando tenemos que venir aquí, cuando llegamos de trabajar a la casa, nuestros hijos o nuestros esposos corren a abrazarnos. Creo que es es un riesgo bastante grande de que se contagien también. Entonces, sabiendo eso, no pude arriesgarme en regresar a trabajar en estas condiciones, de no tomar en cuenta mi vida o la de mi familia, pero gracias al liderazgo del senador Gianaris y asambleístas Reyes y a todos quienes empujaron para que pudiera ser la ley de New York Heroes, ahora me siento más segura y confiada y con confianza regresar y poder exigir mis derechos en el trabajo para proteger mi salud, la de mis compañeras y de todos los trabajadores del Estado. Gracias, gobernador, por firmar la ley, por firmar esta ley, y espero que todos nos sintamos seguros para ya sea seguir trabajando o para continuar lo que uno sabe hacer, porque a mí, por ejemplo, hasta el día de hoy todavía me da temor volver a trabajar en salón de uñas. El pensamiento de que con tocar a la persona, o no solamente eso, que la persona tal vez yo me proteja, pero la persona que voy a atender en ese momento se niegue a protegerse. Todavía me siento nerviosa y creo que ojalá algún día me sienta totalmente confiada para poder hacer mi trabajo como me gusta, porque yo creo que, como dije, tengo más de 20 años trabajando, así que a mí me encanta mi trabajo, me encanta, me encanta interactuar con las clientas. Y pues muchas gracias a ustedes que nos representaron y nos ayudaron a pasar esta ley. Estoy muy agradecida. Gracias de parte de mí y de mi familia. Gracias.
Gracias, Maritza, por tu liderazgo. Gracias por tu trabajo y por siempre estar al frente con todos los otros trabajadores y por ser parte de esta coalición. Thank you so much, Maritza, for being part of this coalition and for being a leader in the work with the workers' movement. Up next, I'd like to introduce to Stuart Applebaum, who is actually a leader for our labor leader for a movement. Stuart is someone who is not only thinking about the members of his union, but he's thinking about our movement and how can we make sure that workers, particularly the most vulnerable, are being taken care. So Stuart, you are next, and thank you for being here and for being a leader with us.
Thank you, Maritza, and congratulations. Congratulations for your extraordinary leadership on this and so many other important issues. We're here today to celebrate the passage of the New York Heroes Act that will protect countless workers' lives. Many members of my union have been essential workers, but they were essential workers before the pandemic, and they will continue to be essential workers after the pandemic is behind us. And at the very least, we need to be protecting them and all workers. That is the very least we can do. This law crystallizes what we have learned as a result of the pandemic. We've taken the best practices for protecting workers, and we have set those practices in stone. This law will save workers' lives as we reopen our state, and it will ensure we are prepared for the next pandemic. All workers in New York State now have a permanent right to a safe and healthy workplace when it comes to airborne infectious diseases. Among the many lessons learned during this pandemic, we have learned about the close connection between the workplace and the community. Workers who contracted COVID-19 brought the disease back to their homes and communities. Protecting workers protects communities. And the New York Hero Act demonstrates that we have learned this lesson. We have also learned that we have strong allies in the Senate and in the Assembly who will stand by workers through thick and thin. And we applaud the sponsors of this bill, Senator Gianaris and Assemblymember Reyes, as well as Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Speaker Carl Hastie for their steady hand guiding this bill to completion. We also thank the governor for signing this bill, but I particularly want to thank the advocates who fought for this bill. Through their tireless efforts, we have improved workers' lives. And lastly, I want to thank the workers who are putting their lives on the line during this pandemic. New York has heard your voices and we have acted. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you, Stuart. Really appreciate that. It's always with the leadership of all of our workers and our members who we can actually, how we can make a big difference in the work that we're doing, but specifically to change people's lives. And that's the work. And thank you for your leadership. Up next, I'd like to introduce you to a worker who during this year and the pandemic has also seen how hard it has been to just see families being devastated because they didn't have the protections in the workplace. In many instances, folks died, got sick, and I'd like to just open it up now for Ari Moma, a nurse and a member of NISNA. I think you might be on mute, Ari. You're good.
Give it 1 second, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ari Moma. I'm a registered nurse and I work at Interfaith Medical Center. And also, I'm a proud union member of New York Nurses Association, NISNA. On behalf of our 42 members of New York of NISNA, I want to use this opportunity to thank Senator Janaris and my NISNA sister, Reyes, and all the legislators, the advocates, and also the leadership of Emeritus for this Hero Act to be passed, and also to thank Governor Cuomo for signing it, because that's one thing. It's not easy, and this is what happens when we unite and work together. That's how this bill was taken to the finish line. About 52,000 New Yorkers have lost their lives to COVID-19, and countless others. Some of these COVID have been taken over to our families within New York and outside, and that has been affected. Some have been wounded physically and mentally. And this act is a testimony of what we can do to protect everyone. The New York Hero Act now will create a major rollback in the current spread of COVID-19 and any future infectious airborne disease which we may face, because we don't know what is happening with the variants and all this, but this is a step where we can build up on. And finally, our non-union brothers and sisters, now they have a voice on their job through workers' committees and whistleblowers. This is what this Hero Act has provided to them. I want to also, so for us to use, this is not the end. This is going to be the beginning of so many fights we have ahead. And I don't want to stretch this much, but this is a way for us to thank, on behalf of NISNA, to thank everyone that has worked tirelessly, different unions and all this to get this bill passed. But let us remember that this is the beginning. We have a fight, and this is something that will give us an energy to keep fighting. Thank you very much to everyone that have fought. And also, let's get more people to join us for more fight in future. Thank you.
Congratulations, this is your week. This is your week. Safe staffing pass as well. And with that note, I want to introduce you to a fearless leader who has been working with us day in and day out to make sure that this law is passed in a way that represents the needs of our workers. I am so pleased to introduce you to Rebecca Miller, representing CWA District 1.
Thank you so much, Maritza, and good morning, everyone. It is so nice to be here today with all of you. My name is Becca Miller. I'm the Deputy Legislative and Political Director for the Communications Workers of America District 1, and I am so grateful to be here today among my brothers and sisters in labor, our community partners, our legislative champion, Senator Gianaris and Assemblymember Reyes, and just celebrating this really huge victory for New York's working people. And as Maritza said, this is a real testament to the true power of the people. It's been a long road and we made it. So CWA represents 70,000 New Yorkers, many of whom have been on the front lines of the COVID crisis. We have healthcare workers taking care of us when we're sick, telecommunications workers, keeping our kids online and remote work going on, public servants in city and state government. And these and our brothers and sisters in all essential industries have kept our state afloat during the most challenging of circumstances. We've seen a devastating global health crisis and an economic crisis. And we all know that workers have borne the brunt of this pandemic. Far too many have lost their lives. We've seen disproportionate impact on communities of color and essential workers. And we all know that the reason so many of us are safe and kept our families safe is the sacrifice of these workers. But thanking these workers, not enough. We need to do what we can to actually protect them on the job. And yesterday, after a year of working together to put together the most protective, most ambitious airborne infectious disease health and safety standards in the country, Governor Cuomo signed New York Hero into law. So I'm really proud to be here today. I'm so excited to celebrate this achievement. It came out of true collaboration and partnership with workers and labor and community and elected officials. And I'm particularly proud that this legislation not only protects workers during this current airborne infectious disease or any airborne infectious disease outbreaks in the future, but also that we've enshrined the right for workers to have a voice on health and safety in the job. This will be monumental to keeping us safe because workers know best how to keep workers safe. And this legislation really honors that truth. So I just want to thank everybody for their tireless work that has led this bill to becoming law. And it's a beautiful victory. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you. And the work continues, as Ari said. You know, this is the beginning because we won the passage of the law. Now we have to implement it, and we have to make sure that we continue working on collaboration to ensure that the workers who are at the front line are able to be vigilant in terms of how the enforcement will take place. To that note, I'd like to introduce you to Uriani, who is a worker in the Laundry Worker Center.
Hola, buenos días. Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Juliana Alejo. Soy miembro del Centro de Trabajadores de Lavandería. Como trabajadora de lavandería, esta ley va a ayudar a mucho que estemos mejor protegidos. Durante todo un año hemos luchado por mejores protecciones y ahora es el momento de celebrar. Esta lucha fue dirigida por trabajadores de todas las industrias, trabajadores organizados en grandes sindicatos, pero también trabajadoras de centro de trabajadores. El Acta de Héroes no es solo una ley, sino una herramienta para salvar vidas. Somos esenciales, pero las trabajadoras de lavandería siempre hemos sido excluidas de muchas de las protecciones laborales por la cantidad de trabajadoras. Y esta ley nos va a cubrir sin tener en cuenta el número de trabajadoras y también a nombre de las trabajadoras de lavandería y de la organización del Centro de Trabajadores de Lavandería, queremos agradecer a todos los que lucharon como colectivo para que esta ley se pasara. Felicidades a todos. Y ahora nos toca educar a todos los trabajadores para que conozcan sus derechos y la acta de héroes. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Juliana. I really appreciate your leadership on this work. And it is right, we are saving lives with this legislation. We have a couple more speakers and then we're going to open up for questions. I'd like to up next introduce you to a leader from the immigration community. Let's remember that immigrant communities have been at the front line of this pandemic, and it's really important to hear how this has affected these communities and what this legislation and now law will do to the communities in the immigrant communities particularly. So let me introduce you to the New York Immigration Coalition, Kyla Kalitin. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, and I'm sorry if I didn't.
That's all right. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Kayla Kalitian, Manager of Member Engagement for Central New York with the New York Immigration Coalition. Thanks to the fierce advocacy of our coalition, New York is now leading the nation by being the first state to implement a permanent airborne disease standard. No worker will ever have to choose between maintaining their health or keeping their job as a result of this bill. New York Hero is a plan for the state for this pandemic and future pandemics, and it promises safety and well-being for millions of families. We want to thank Speaker Hasty and Assemblymember Reyes for their leadership. Thanks to the governor for signing this bill. But moreover, and more specifically, thank you to the workers who time and time again shared their stories demanding that this bill be passed, who during their work hours were present advocating and demanding that New York protect its heroes. Shout out to Alianza, who, you know, time and time again in these press conferences, you hear the cows while they're sharing their stories, right? This is a huge win for farm workers who have been putting food on our tables, keeping up the production. You know, we heard about the farmers giving out dairy and products to the communities, but we didn't hear about the farm workers keeping production going despite the constant threat of the pandemic for them and their families. Shout out to the organizers, especially in the upstate area, who work with farm workers like the Worker Center of Central New York, the organizers on the ground making things move, calling on their legislators, dropping banners over highways, mobilizing people and taking action. This is a true testament to the success of organizing and collective work. This is one step forward for immigrant workers and their families on the front lines, and this is one step forward for labor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kyla. Thank you so much. We're going to give a shout out to all the groups who have been part of this, because there is 70 plus groups, and I don't want to forget any of you, and all the scientists and groups who really have been at the front line. Lupita, I see you. Last Mile, I see you. Lastly, just to close us up on the program, and then we're going to open up to questions. We're going to invite a free leader from the Teamsters who have been working with us, Doug Washington.
Hello, everyone. Let's get my video here. I'm sorry. My name is Doug Washington. I've been part of the Teamsters for the past 20 years, and I worked for Roy Waste Services out of New York, and I just, you know, with this Heroes Bill and the coalition, I wanted to say that it's been a remarkable journey. Wanted to thank everyone, all the politicians and the council members and everyone that's been in contribution to this, that it's totally needed. And that just a little insight that back in May 20th in 2020, I came down with COVID, and there was a much uncertainty with me, with work and my work patterns and how I go on a daily basis. And it took me 3 months to get back into my work habit. But I believe the Heroes Bill that's coming will give some clarity and some a safe haven to workers that's, you know, looking for a better way of life. And I believe the Hero Bill will be that outcome. Thank you for your time. I would like to see everyone in a better place as we move forward past this pandemic. And thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much. This is really showing and showcasing the power of this coalition. But I know that some folks have to jump off the call, and I'd like to make sure that we open up for questions from the press. I'm sure there's questions for Senator Gianaris and Assemblywoman Reyes particularly. So we're going to move quickly to those questions. Are there any questions from press?
Bob, go
Andrea,
ahead.
if you can unmute.
I just did. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking my questions. I was just curious your response, because a lot of people in the business community were opposed to the legislation, concerned about more regulations at a time when many of them are struggling. Just how would you respond to that? And just for my personal information, this applies to every single business in New York. Is that correct?
You want me to jump in on that, Marissa? Or-
Yeah, please go ahead. You can.
I believe it's limited to businesses with more than 10 employees. So the very small businesses would not be included. But the answer to the question more broadly is it is not a cost-saving mechanism to put your employees and customers at risk of death. So it's just not a good argument that it may cost them some money to make sure everybody is safe. I would also add that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We just passed a state budget that had $1 billion in state money for small business relief. So we are very conscious of the struggles of small businesses over the last year, and we're doing a lot to help them in addition to whatever the federal government is doing. But public safety cannot be compromised, and the health of workers cannot be compromised.
Yeah, I also want to add, it actually applies to all public sector businesses. Private sector businesses, I'm sorry, we excluded public sector from this. So all private sector businesses, and then those with 10 employees or more will be permitted to form worker safety committees.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat the businesses with 10 or more?
So
businesses with 10 or less are excluded, private businesses?
The law applies to all private sector workplaces. The 10 or more number is for the worker committees. So those workplaces that have 10 or more employees will be permitted to form worker safety committees.
Okay, thank you so much.
I misspoke earlier.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's a lot to say, but one thing I want to say in terms of the small business, actually, how this will impact. Let's clarify this. There are already guidelines in place that even the governor has talked about it. They are already doing this work, basic PPEs, hand sanitizing, all those things. Employers are already, some of them doing. What we're trying to do here is just to make sure that there is permanent protections for those workers, now and in the future. And that's what the big difference is. It's not going to be any huge cost for businesses. So, all of these arguments really are not necessarily going to be undermining the ability for business to reopen and hopefully continue to thrive.
And I just want to add, I think as we are starting to reopen the economy, a lot of businesses are looking for guidance on how to do that safely. And one of the arguments that a lot of people brought up, particularly during the debate of this bill, was the need to change ventilation, air ventilation systems. And the law doesn't mandate that at all. So a lot of, like Maritza said, a lot of the steps that are required in the piece of legislation are already being taken by some employers. We just want to have the ability to enforce these standards and to have clarity so they know what they have to do in order to protect themselves and protect their workers. Because currently it's kind of like a piecemeal, haphazard system of policies and guidelines, either from the CDC or from the state or from the city. And we just want to kind of streamline that.
Karina, if you want to unmute and ask your question next.
There, I was just wondering for the lawmakers, could you explain a little bit about what are the technical changes to the bill the governor says he's secured with the legislature, and maybe when will those be taken up or voted on? Thank you.
I mean, there was a few. Mike, do you want to
I think the big one that most people are recognizing that has some substantive consequence is there's now an opportunity, or there will be once we pass the amendments, an opportunity for employers to fix any violations. So there's a 30-day window when they're notified of violations of the safety requirements, that they would have a chance to fix it before they would be subject to enforcement or lawsuits.
And I think the implementation date as well, it's going to be a total of 90 days, whereas the current language says 30 days.
Yeah, I can jump in. So there's 30 days for curing, unless the employer is acting in bad faith, and that's decided by a court. So it does protect workers in immediate, urgent situations, while still affording employers to fix violations if they are, willing to. And so I think it's a really good balance in protecting the needs of workers and employers.
And I think, I don't know if this was the question, but someone earlier had asked, in terms of when we might pass the amendments, I think we expect it'll be done before session ends in a month.
Thank you.
Robert, if you want to unmute next. I think you're still.
Thanks, Bob Hunter, the chief leader. We're trying to sort out here. I just went and visited Lower Manhattan on Tuesday with the mayor's suggestion that people start rolling back, bringing back remote workers, public civil servants to Lower Manhattan. It's pretty much a ghost town now. I found a wide variation in the response. At City Hall, when I went to my desk, there was a person from DCAS who had me go through a screening to read certain things and information. But I went to 250 Broadway, which was a very large physical building I know you guys are acquainted with, that the city rents in and the state rents in. There was no similar protocol. When I went to 100 Church Street, another significant property where public employees and private employees have to go through. So I'm just wondering, one, what is there a public equivalent bill that already exists that protects people? And so is there, in terms of for the public workforce that I write for?
So we passed something similar for public sector workers in last year's budget. And this is why it was so important for us to do the HERO Act, because we wanted to expand those protections to private sector workers. Now, the implementation of it I feel like that's the biggest problem, and that's what we have to be watchful about, is how things are implemented, because that's really where we put people's life at risk. And that's why it's so important to have legal protections for workers.
May I have a follow-up, or is there someone else interested in a follow-up?
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so while we have this group of folks together who have been in the leadership of trying to get these reforms going, the issue of workers' compensation is significant, and the damage has been done for many families, as I know you're aware of. So NICOSH produced a report that estimates 250,000 essential workers were sickened by COVID, but another 150,000 had an asymptomatic exposure. And worker comp attorneys say those individuals need to file a claim. Can you talk about the work that needs to be done regarding creating a safety net and filling the gaps that exist when it comes to worker compensations to those workers that have already given so much and put their families at risk?
Who's that for, Bob?
Anybody who wants to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reason we focus so much on getting the HERO Act done is we want to protect workers. That is more directly related to their health, but the economic consequences of what they've suffered through is also incredibly important. To the extent people are slipping through the cracks or not covered by existing policies, we need to change it. And I know on our side, Senator Gianaris has played a lead role in a lot of this, and we're going to continue to work to make sure that no one is left behind.
Yeah, guys. Hey, this is Charlene from NICOSH. Hey, Bob. From my perspective as well, the New York State Workers' Comp Board needs to do outreach to workers about their ability to apply for COVID. To apply for workers' comp when they've had COVID. I've talked to countless workers who have no idea that they're even eligible. And so that's really at the heart of the issue. It's like now that New York Hero has passed, we're really hopeful that this legislation is going to, spark that drive in people to say, okay, I've actually got to apply for workers' comp now, ignite that conversation. But it's definitely still an issue for workers. I mean, 50,000 who have
I think we lost you, Charlene.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I think we lost you.
Any other questions, please raise your hand or type in the chat from press.
Maritza, if there's nothing more for me, I'm already late to Zoom.
Yes, I appreciate you staying here late, and we'll obviously pass any inquiries that might come from other press to you.
There's a question in the chat for Maritza, Becca, about how advocates feel about these amendments.
Go ahead, Becca. I'll leave it to you, and then I'll fill in.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we ended up with the strongest protections that we possibly could have. It's an ambitious, best standard in the country. I mean, I feel really good about the legislation that we ended up with. At the end of the day, workers keep workers safe. It's not just the law, right? We enforce the law. That's what unions do. That's what worker centers do and legal advocates, and we enforce the law. And so the law gives us the tools we need to do it, and now we do it. So I feel really good about where we landed on the bill. There's certainly, if I were designing things, I would do a lot of stuff to protect workers. So I think that's always the case, right? But I think we ended up in a really good place.
I would just, add on to this. It's just like what we're doing with this law is also writing, making things right to things that were wrong. And I think that's important to highlight. So many people sacrificed their lives, and so many lives could have been saved if employers were actually taking the precautions necessary ahead of it. And this law would actually enforce it and ensure that happens. So I feel extremely excited about the passage of the law and about the future of how workforce will be seen now. We say those workers are essential. Well, this is how we say thank you to the essential workers, and this is how we value the work that they do.
There was a question on the effective date. I think Jake answered it. Right. 60 days, 30 days, and then it's 180 days for the worker committees for that to go into effect. So 60 days for the DOL to put out a standard, and 30 days for employers to put out the workplace plan, and 180 days for the worker committees, which is section 2 of the bill.
Are any last questions, either in the chat or raise your hand? All right, Maritza, pass it back to you.
I see a hand. Andrea, that was an old hand?
Yes, that was an old hand, but since I was called on, I was just curious, the two workers who spoke, the woman from the nail salon and the laundry worker, just curious where they live and work, if that's possible.
Do we have them in here? Rosanna, if you're there, maybe you can help us with the answer. They might have jumped off, Andrea, but can we get back to you in a minute? We'll send you a note. Becca, you have?
Clara's
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Maritza's still on. Maritza.
Great.
Maritza, ¿dónde vive y dónde trabaja? Maritza está on mute.
Sí.
Or if somebody could just email, I'll reach out after. That's fine too.
Well, she's ready.
Hi. I can
Yo-
respond for the laundromat workers. Juliana live and work in Brooklyn. Now, before she was working on Manhattan, Upper East Side, and he got fired because she was organizing. So she's still fighting for that and for demand better conditions in the workplace too.
Thank you.
Great. Are we good? All right. So we're not going to conclude this press conference without giving a shout out to everyone who is here. I mean, every single person in this coalition, the tears, the sweat, the late nights, the press conferences. So I want to give a big shout out to all of the organizations that are here. And I'm going to just name them because it is important to recognize the people who are coming together. This is what a coalition and a real, true coalition collaboration looks like. And again, like I said earlier today, I'm very proud of all the work that we did together here. Let me just give a shout out. Start off with, Becca, you are there, CWL District 1. I want to say the Legal Aid Society. I want to say NICLU. I want to say the Teamsters Joint Council 16, Laundry Worker Centers, Food Chain Workers Alliance, New York Communities for Change, Make the Road New York. I want to say New York Immigration Coalition. Obviously, NISNA, you guys fighting every day and joining the calls every time we had calls, jumping on quick calls every time. I want to say RWDSU, Jessica Garcia, obviously your leadership is incredible. Josh, you guys, thank you for all that work. I want to say the 9/11 coalition. I don't want to forget any names, so I'm going to say them all. Worker Justice Center of New York, Alianza Agricola, you all are incredible. You have done a ton. UFCW 1500, UFCW 2013. I mean, you all are doing amazing amount of work already on the ground with your members, and then you join this coalition and you have made this coalition as strong as it has been. And I want to obviously say thank you, Assemblywoman Reyes. Your leadership is extraordinary. The work that you've done with us here is incredible. This is a start. This is the beginning of more great work that we're going to continue to do together. And let's not forget, I'm an immigrant. So is Karines. Many immigrant groups, like the group that has been working with us, Eddie from the Forward USA. Thank you for your work. Andalon, all the immigrant communities that have been on the fight. UAW. There are so many unions and groups that came together here. So this is if I was with you on the ground, outside enjoying the sunlight, we'll be hugging and singing. And yes, when we fight, we win. And I want to say, this is just inspiring, but also this is just the beginning. We're going to continue doing more work together and continue to win together. Thank you all.
Woohoo!
Yeah! When we fight, we win.
Thanks, Align. Thank you, Align.
Thank you, Align. Thank you, Align.
Thank you.
Gracias, Maritza. Gracias, compañeras.
Gracias a todos.
There you go, my friends from Nelson.
Gracias, Marisa and Align, for your role in this coalition.
I mean, let's not forget, Jake has kept us all together.
Jake, Patrick,
Linda, Patrick, team, Fabiola. Thank you for everything that you've done. Jeremy, Rosanna, Clara. I mean, all of the names that we can name here today, you all have done incredible. It hasn't been easy, but you all really rock. And my big appreciation, especially for the Align team. You all kept it together and we worked together. The Food Chain Workers Alliance, let's say that, and all of their members who have been doing so many great things. So I'm not gonna leave this press conference until we keep calling everybody, because you all are incredible and we all win when we come together. That's the vision and that's what we're trying to do. Lupita from the COVID talk. I want to say, Amanda, if you're still there, thank you for all the work that you've done, bringing all the scientists together. I mean, our lawyers, Becca, our lawyers. You know, I love law now because of our lawyers. Thank you, lawyers. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Avi. Ricky's not with us here today, but I want to say thank you to Ricky. Ricky really was in the beginning stages, and some folks who are not here today from the former Align team, Daisy and Chio, who, you know, left for other reasons, but they were part of this. So I want to also publicly thank them, even though we don't have them here today. Thank you all. Let's keep winning. Let's keep fighting. You know, when workers fight, we win. Thank you all. Oh my God, I don't want to go.
Es como tener el último examen del semestre, te quedas con la adrenalina bien alta y no sabes qué hacer con eso.
Correcto, exactamente. Bueno, es una. We're going to have to do a celebration in person and do some practicing.
Esperemos que mucha gente se vaya, podemos decir algo más privado, pero la verdad ha sido un honor, una alegría tan grande, aunque ha habido muchas lágrimas en el camino, ¿no? Porque ver la gente sufrir no es cosa buena, y sobre todo aquellos que no estamos necesariamente en el frente, ¿no? Entonces, pero mi madre trabajó en el Garment District en Los Ángeles, y so did my mom and my grandmother, and my grandfather was a farm worker. So, lo que esta gente está pasando, lo pasaron mi familia. So, esas conexiones que tenemos por las generaciones es muy importante mantenerlas y nunca abandonar a nuestra gente. So, para la trabajadora de uñas, señora, que también hemos estado estudiando sus condiciones de trabajo en los lugares donde usted trabaja. So, hay científicos que estamos trabajando para protegerlos con nuestra ciencia. So, ténganos fe y dígales a sus hijos que estudien ciencia y ingeniería, ¿ok? Tengo que hacer mi plug because we got to have more people who can protect our communities through the work that we do, through the law that we support, but also the science. The science needs to take place. And it has to come, you know, from the heart.
That's right. That is right. This is in memory of all the ones we lost, somebody says on the chat, and it's true. It's true. I think if there is any way in which we can remember them today, is just by saying we're going to protect the ones who stayed, and we're going to make sure that that happens. En memoria de todos que se fueron, vamos a proteger a los que se quedaron.
No se quedaron.
Y vamos a protegernos a nosotros y continuar trabajando con solidaridad. Muchas gracias por esas palabras.
Thank you, everyone. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Me retiro.
Adiós, muchas gracias. Hasta pronto, nos vemos pronto. I don't know if anyone else wants to say a few words now that we don't have press here. It looks like we have a more intimate space. If anyone wants to say anything else, I don't want to go until we all say our piece. Just jump in. Maybe let's put some music. Where is our music?
I don't know where the music.
Did you leave?
Rich is texting me like, "Where's the music?"
Where's the music at? We were supposed to have music. All right. Well, I want to just give a chance for others to say words, if anything you want to say as we close up. If not, let's catch up again. We're gonna definitely, Jake is gonna make sure that we're all together again pretty soon, perhaps tomorrow, 11 o'clock. And we'll do a quick check-in there about what's next on implementation, obviously, and then maybe we'll do an in-person dancing celebration as things open up and as this weather gets better. Yeah, I love those moves, Becca. We're gonna dance and win and keep going. All right, you all. Thank you.